Hey, what's up everybody? In this video, I thought I would show you guys a little bit or all of my game wall. I like retro video games. I like all video games. I'm really into the retro stuff because I grew up on it. And I've been collecting for about four or 5 years here in Japan. So let's take a look at what I got here. Hopefully you see something interesting. All right, so let's start with the top left hand. We got a couple of figurines here. Some Mario stuff, Dragon Quest stuff, Zelda stuff, Kirby. We got some plushies that I got from a lot of UFO catchers here, which is a big thing in Japan. We got the Game Boy Pocket printer in box. There's a copy of Super Metroid right here in box. Mario Paint is behind there. We got the gun, the light gun. This is the light gun for the Famicom, which is the NES in the West. And the West version looked more like a space type gun, but the Japanese one looks very like a very realistic Magnum, which obviously you couldn't do definitely in the US. We got a issue of Game Bro here. Moving over is the foreign collection section. Foreign by standards of where I'm living now. So a couple more figurines up here. Right here is the NES collection. Some of these this Wheel of Fortune is actually from my childhood. It's just a few. I sold most of my stuff to come to Japan a long time ago. These are a few. Some of these I kept. Some of these I've gotten since then on trips back home. We got some very few Super Nintendo games. Super Punch Out, which actually never got released in Japan, only in the States. So I had to grab that on the trip back. And Secret of Mana, a very great RPG for the Super Nintendo. Come on down here, we got the 64, a few 64 games. You gotta have your GoldenEye, your Ocarina of Time, your Majora's Mask, and then we got Perfect Dark and Ogre Battle, and I think there's something behind here. Yeah, Harvest Moon 64. They got, this is actually from my childhood as well, from very, very, very small, when I was very, very, very small. E.T., known as one of the worst games of all time. Moving over to the right, we got a copy of Super Mario World for Super Nintendo, aka Super Famicom here in Japan. We got Metroid for the disc system. Disc system never came out in the States. Metroid was released originally on the disc system here in Japan. And there's Castlevania right there, the original Castlevania, also originally on the disc system. Super Nintendo is behind there, you can't see it, sorry about that. But they're in box. Super Famicom, like I said, what's called here. And dropping Metroid. We got the Super Game Boy in box. We got the Nintendo, aka Famicom. This is the second version of it, or third version, second or third version. The dog bone version, they call it, the top loader. We got a copy of the original Super Mario Brothers in this cool little case. We got the first version of the Nintendo here in Japan. This is what it looked like in box. And then we got this cool speaker that I got. You can plug it up to something and it actually plays music out of it. All right, let's move on over to a bunch of games. All right, so here we go, starting with the meat and potatoes of it all. Games. This is the modern area. Most of my collection is retro, but you know, I gotta have my Switch. Got a couple things here, some Joy-Cons and stuff, the Switch. Whole bunch of games. Lots and lots of games. Here, and you go down one. Bunch of more games, including the art book set for Link's Awakening. You got stuff like Wolfenstein, New Colossus, Super Smash Brothers, of course, Final Fantasy, the Zodiac Age. What else we got? Breath of the Wild, of course. Mario Rabbids, great game. Mega Man 11. I Am Setsune. Astro Chain. Lots of stuff. Tokyo Mirage Sessions. We got a whole lot of games here. I'm not gonna go through each one of them individually. This video would go on way too long. And a couple of 3DS stuff. I have very little 3DS stuff. But this is the last thing I actually bought on the 3DS. The Samus Returns remake. This cool little special edition that came with a music CD. And then we got stuff like Biohazard, which is Resident Evil in the West. Super Mario 3D Land, Luigi's Mansion 2. That Zelda game, what was that called? It's a really good game. I always forget this name though. It's called the Triforce of the Gods in Japan, but A Link Between Worlds, that's it. And there's the 3DS, the new 3DS, as you can see here. All right, let's move on down. Here we got VV plush. I got this a long time ago. I believe it was reserving Final Fantasy 9, perhaps, on the original PlayStation. That's how I got that. I don't even remember anymore. Over here, a little bit to the left, you can see you got the huge boxes of Ring Fit and Labo there. All right, let's move into some retro stuff. We got the Mega Drive. This is called the Genesis in the States. Mega Drive, pretty much everywhere else. Sonic 2, Sonic 3. Just a few things in box. Thunder Force 3. Monster Land, Golden X2. And then we have a few carts only. Strider. What else? Quackshot, good game. Alter Beast, rise from your grave. Here we have the PC Engine, which is known as the PC Engine and one Dreamcast, one PlayStation game here. But PC Engine, known as the TurboGrafx 16 in the States. But first, Dreamcast, we have Jet Set Radio. This is my original copy of it, actually. I think my first ever imported game. This is the Japanese version, but I got it when I was still in the States. I really wanted to play this game. I need to do an HD remake for the Switch with that. And then Bust a Move, I bought this here for like super cheap somewhere. I think it was like $3 or something. PC Engine games, Street Fighter 2 Turbos. We got Kadesh, Space Harrier. And then a couple of the loose ones. This is what they look like. They're like little cards. Card type. Vigilante. Alright, let's go down. We're going to head back into a little bit of more modern area. And this is the last bit of modern that you guys will see in this video, I believe. Got a bit of PS3. I mean, PS3 is getting near retro though. Yakuza 4, Yakuza 3. There's a couple of things you can see there. God of War. Uncharted. I have all the Uncharted. Great series. And then you move on over. PlayStation 4. Next to Ni no Kuni 1 on PS3 is Ni no Kuni 2 on PlayStation 4. We got stuff like the Jedi Fallen Order, Shenmue 3. Spider-Man, so good. I love the Yakuza series. I have all the Yakuza series games. There's the last one, 6. Nice little booklet. Horizon Dawn, stuff like that. And that's it. That's it for the modern. Let's go back in time now. Let's go back and stay back in time for the most part. We come down here. We got some e-card readers for the Game Boy. The Light Boy. It's a light and a magnifying glass. Strap that baby onto the original Game Boy. You're playing in the dark. Sufami Turbo. A Sufami Turbo game, a Gundam game. This is Japan only. Controllers, 6 button. The 6 button, gotta have a 6 button for the Genesis. And got my little Hori GameCube style controller for Smash Brothers on the Switch. Alright. Down here is not much of anything. A bunch of batteries. Screwdrivers for opening up the Super Nintendo cartridges and stuff. And this Japanese only Super Terminator. It's kind of like a Game Genie type thing. Alright. Let's go back up. Here is the handheld roll. We're gonna start right here with the Game Boy Pockets, red and pink. We got an original Game Boy. Woo, this is dusty. Original Game Boy Advance. We got Game Boy SP2. We got the version 001. And the 101 that has the backlight, which also never came out in Japan, so I had to grab this from the States. We got Game Boy Color, the original hefty DS Lite, cool little Bomberman figure, and one of my favorite things here, this cool Game Boy Micro. This is the, you can see the 20th anniversary. So it's got the Famicom colors. It's pretty cool stuff. I love this. The screen is so good on this. We got Zelda Minish Cap inside of here right now. Moving down, one is Game Gear. Game Gear with Puyo Puyo included. Here you go. Here is the Game Boy Game Gear. This monster of a machine. The battery drainer, battery eater of worlds. Game Boy AC adapter. We got some cables. We got a 4-player link cable back there. We got another Game Boy printer with some Game Boy paper. If you're interested to see how this thing works out, I did a video on that. Check out the Game Boy Pocket Printer and camera video. We got a Wonder Swan Color, which this is a Bandai released system only in Japan. And I got this baby for sweet, pretty much like $1. Alright, let's get to some games. This is the start of the games for the handheld. But before we go there, we gotta show off, of course, the original Game Boy, the brick. It's a beauty. It's a thing of beauty. We got a couple of DS things. Chrono Trigger, one of the greatest RPGs of all time. A couple of Game Boy games in box. You can see there. Wario Land 3. Got some Kirby Pinball. Some great art on these boxes. For the Game Boy Advance, I started collecting some of the Famicom Classics minis, Zelda, Mario. Don't have nearly all the ones that I want. Zelda 2, Kid Icarus. You saw Minish Cap earlier, Zelda Minish Cap. There's the box, got a couple of games, Mario Kart, a couple of things. In box there, a Wario game in box. And then here, some loose Virtual Boy games. I actually don't have the Virtual Boy system yet. Haven't found it for super cheap, which is the only way I'm gonna buy it. But I do have some games. And Puyo Puyo, Game Gear, Sonic 2. And then for that Wonder Swan that I showed you, they had the version of Final Fantasy 2 on that thing. Game called Gunpei. One Piece game. And more games. This is the Game Boy cameras. We got 3 of them here, as you can see. And a lot of the original Game Boy games. This is a cool RPG. For whom the bell tolls. The bell tolls for, wait. The frog, the bell tolls for the frog. I forgot the name. Something about a bell and a frog. It's kind of like a Zelda-esque game. Japanese only. Speaking of Zelda, Link's Awakening, the original. Castlevania stuff. We got a lot of games. Another Castlevania. Lots of stuff. And in those cool little Game Boy cases. Ninja Turtles. Yeah, I mean, we're not shy of games here on the original Game Boy. That is for sure. Gotta have your Tetris. There's no Game Boy without Tetris. Okay. And here's a little box of Game Boy Advance games. There's a lot of various games in here. Let's just go through some quick ones. Kid Icarus, Metroid Zero Mission, great game. River City Ransom, awesome game. Castlevania, which one is it? Circle of the Moon. Starfleet 3. Klonoa. Mega Man and Bass. Wario, shake 'em. Right there. Choo Choo Rocket. I used to play this online on the Dreamcast. Super Street Fighter. I forgot I had this. Super Street Fighter 2. Revival. Metroid Fusion. And we got some Pokemon Pinball here. Some other stuff. Down on this shelf is my original Super Multi-Tap for the Super Nintendo. I got this when it first came out to play Bomberman with friends, and this is that very one right there. And then we have a couple of empty boxes. I found a cool game store that you can just buy empty boxes. So if I ever get the games, some of these I do have, but like for this one, if I ever get the game, I can just drop that in there. They sell like empty boxes, and you can get like empty manuals, like 5 boxes for $2, like 5 manuals for $2. So we just got a bunch of random boxes here. If we go down, some controller stuff. There's that 6-button TurboGrafx controller. Super Nintendo, the actual, the US version, classic Nintendo. This is it's like a special version of it, but this is basically the look of the Japanese Nintendo controller without these buttons right here. And then we got a fighter stick. I guess not a fighter, but a shooter stick. Not a whole lot of fighters on the original Nintendo. Just kind of cool. And a bunch of chargers for Game Boys, different various versions of Game Boys. All right, let's move to the last row of shelves. So, starting with the first shelf on the last row of shelves, we got Super Nintendo, Super Famicom here. This is the box stuff, as you can see. Boxed and manualed. Lots of goodies here. This is a cool Terra Enigma. Cool RPG, Japan and I believe Europe only. Never came to the States for some reason. Got some Final Fight. But yeah, a lot of box stuff. I have mostly loose stuff. So if we come down here, well, you see a lot of the RPGs, some of my favorites. We got pretty much all the Dragon Quest that came on the Super Nintendo. Final Fantasy VI, greatest Final Fantasy. Come at me, all you Final Fantasy VII lovers. Final Fantasy V, we got Chrono Trigger. Again, the original Super Nintendo version of it. Such a good game. And then some loose stuff. This is where the loose stuff begins. There's lots of stuff. And this little cool little Super Famicom case that I found. I have basically the best finds during my retro searchings, as in stuff that cost the most normally, but that I got for the cheapest, for a very cheap price. Final Fat Tough is pretty rare. Paid, I think, $5 for it, $5 or $10. You usually see it for like 100, 150 something here in stores. Demons Blazing, Demon's Quest is this is pretty rare. This is always like 200 something, and I found this in a thrift shop for, it was less than $1. It was crazy. This is definitely the best find that I've gotten. Turtles, got that for like $10. Mega Man X3. So yeah, some good stuff. And all the stuff, like the US version is even crazy rarer. More Famicom, Super Famicom games. Mother, aka Earthbound. They got a lot of stuff here. There's Secret of Mana 3, just now on the Switch not too long ago, and then there was a remake, which I also got, which is awesome, but this cart version of the Super Nintendo never got released in the States. So these carts right here are like dominoes. If I touch them the wrong way, they're gonna all come falling down on me. Harvest Moon, Goemon is a great series. Some more Mega Man. Hyperzone, I just listened to a podcast, Retronauts, of them ragging on this game a bit. I think it's a pretty decent game. Mario RPG. So lots of stuff here. We're not going to go through it all individually. Let's move on to the last system, the games. The OG, the classic. Here we are, the Nintendo, aka the Famicom here in Japan. As you can see, you might not recognize these carts because, as I showed you earlier in my little foreign section, the Western, at least the US carts, looked way different than this. They were all gray and much like taller and longer. But these are indeed NES carts here. In Japan, they had all these colors and they were smaller. So these are all the classics you know and love, just with a lot brighter colors on the outside. But as you can see, I have a lot of Jackie Chan. I have a lot of Ninja Gaiden. A lot of loose NES carts. Chip and Dale is a great game. Atari Warriors, got the Ghostbusters you see there. What else is back here? Punch Out. It's good stuff. Sunsoft Batman, good game. Devilman. And then if we come down, one more shelf. The last shelf of games. And more loose NES games. Dragon Ninja, which is Bad Dudes, actually. Lots of good stuff. Goonies. Goonies are good enough. This is actually my favorite movie of all time, Goonies, and I love the game as well. They had part 1 only came out in Japan on the system, and then part 2 here. This one came out. I have this on the US NES. And then these are a couple games I haven't even taken out of plastic yet. Most of these are, I think, are doubles. You can see me opening up some traditional lucky bags here in Japan. And I found this retro game store that was selling lucky bag retro games where you like buy a bag for a certain amount of price, you don't know what's inside of it. I just knew there were games in it, but you know what games there were. And I did a YouTube video on that, so check that out. And then we got a couple things in box. I don't have a whole lot of boxed NES games. Of course, you gotta have Super Mario. This one's pretty cool. Sweet Home. This is basically a lot of inspiration on Resident Evil right here. Survival horror RPG. It's like the birthplace of Resident Evil. This is a pretty sweet game. The Dragon Quest games are all pretty sweet. But yeah, there you go. And then this little Akira. This cool little plastic case. And then this cool Final Fantasy 1 and 2 pack. Combo pack for the Nintendo. Thought that was pretty cool, so I had to get that. It's like a whole maps and instruction manuals and stuff on the inside. And there you have it. The last shelf is absolutely nothing. That is the game collection.